Won't advertise one.
It goes between vibrate and dead silent.
Never seen the countdown before.
Oh.
From where I sit.
Does this make you nervous?
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call tonight's Muscatine City Council in-depth meeting for March 8th, 2018 to order. Cinda, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Spread?
Present.
Harvey?
Present.
Brockert?
Present.
Saucedo?
Present.
Brackett?
Present.
Fitzgerald?
Present.
Malcolm?
Present.
7 present, 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. Tonight's what we call an in-depth council meeting, and as such, we dispense with a lot of the formalities. So we're going to jump right into tonight's agenda. We only have a few things on there. So the first thing we have is a public hearing. And this public hearing is on amending ordinance number 91191-0410. And it's about increasing the utility franchise fee for the interstate power and light. Now is the time for the public to comment. Hearing no comments, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Spread with a second by Councilman Brackett. There was no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye. Oh, no.
The motion carries with all ayes. Moving on to number 3 on tonight's agenda. We have the first reading of an ordinance on amending ordinance number 91191-0410 to increase the utility franchise fee for interstate power and light that we just had the public hearing on prior. Is there a motion to adopt the first reading of this ordinance as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by, a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
And Councilman Fitzgerald.
Aye.
The motion is adopted with all ayes. We are on number 4 on tonight's agenda, and we have a discussion of a draft resolution to establish an ad hoc committee for review of a building permit process that we do. We have possible action to follow, and I believe this is going to start being discussed by Councilmember Brackett.
All right, so I had, at our last meeting, put forth a motion, and then I was then made aware that it needed to be on the agenda. So that was when I prepared this document for tonight's agenda, and wanted to, basically it lays out in better detail what I had proposed last week in forming an ad hoc committee to review the permitting process that we are doing in the city, as well as what we'd been doing in the county that we recently had that agreement terminated. And I guess I would be happy to answer any questions or see where we're at with this at this point.
Any discussion?
So one of my, I guess, concerns in regards to, if you read through your number 3 item, the permitting process to review the committee that will review the permits for unincorporated areas in the Muscatine County as well as permits within incorporated areas of the city. So if we're no longer reviewing anything of the unincorporated, basically what you're saying is the locations outside of the city limits?
For the permits that we had recently done,
Yeah.
just to make sure that we're having kind of the full spectrum, so I want to make sure that if it comes back that there was only an issue in the county, well, then they've already canceled their agreement with us, so we move forward with no changes and everything looks
I guess
fine.
I'm just looking at it from a perspective of not needing to review anything on the outside in the county, but I'm open to listening.
Yeah, I guess I'm not aware certainly of any complaints in the city. We know of one outside the city, which is what brought this whole matter forward. So it just strikes me as this is a little overkill. I mean, in your resolution, you talked about bringing transparency to the process. Well, you know, I was here, I voted in open session to approve that ordinance. The fee schedule was established in 2005, and in 2015, when we reaffirmed the entire city code, we acknowledged that, all done in open session. Every city, every county in the state of Iowa adopted the same building code. I don't know why we're doing this. And if it's a matter of staff performance, by code, that falls within the purview of the city administrator. That's his responsibility. So that's just the way I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had received more complaints than just the one that's been referred to, but I figure that, you know, my thought process on that is it can wait until the committee is formed and then review that. And then the committee's purpose would be to bring back any recommendations to council and staff after they've reviewed, or come back and say that everything looked great and continue forward as is.
I actually had 2 issues brought forth to me just this week in the city, and I passed them off to the councilman that was in, that was in what ward it was in. I passed it off to that relevant one, so.
So you're, oh, sorry.
But, and I was just going to add to Councilman Spread's comments, coming from the nonprofit world as I do, annually and even monthly at times, evaluating the services that you provide is not only wise, but mandated to make sure that you are performing the services that the participants are looking for. Go ahead,
I was just gonna comment, the number that you had anticipated of inspections, you had mentioned a number for industrial and for residential, correct?
I had, I'm trying to remember if that made it to the, yeah, right here on number 2, under the seconds.
Okay, so then the permits shall be issued over the last 3 years, reviewing the minimum of 20 commercial industrial permit requests, reviewing the minimum of 40 residential requests. So that's where my questions come back again. Are we looking just in a broad view of the whole county as unincorporated areas, or are we focusing just on the city and those residentials as well?
I wrote it as, well, I guess I didn't specify that, so my intent though is to have it be fairly broad, because that'll give us the best idea of whether or not, you know, there's an issue in the first place, or whether or not, you know, there's an issue that exists in a specific area, if one does exist. You know, that was my thought process on that, is to allow us the room to gather, you know, so we're not focusing on one specific spot and then coming back with a skewed opinion of what's going on.
I don't know if they do residential permits. That's why I didn't. That's what I'm asking.
They don't do them in the county, they do them in the city only.
Okay, so then that's what I'm asking.
Correct.
So then
those would just be.
that would be just in the city.
Because
if
the
we don't do them
county,
in the county at
because
all.
the county does their own residential, they didn't have, my understanding was they didn't have the manpower and or the expertise they felt to do the industrial and commercial in the county, and that's why they subcontracted with the city in order to do that, because we do have the expertise to do that. I mean, I don't need to tell people how long I've been around here, but I've been doing construction work in Muscatine for over 40 years. Contractors have, over the years, confided in me, some of them nicely, some of them not quite so nice, about how the staff is working and so forth. We had an issue a couple years ago, and that individual decided to leave, and I have actually had no comments related to the existing inspectors, other than they get along with everybody fine, and they're not having any issues. So I think this is an unnecessary committee, in my personal belief. So
I got a question. There was a letter involved that kind of triggered this inquiry.
Yes.
I've never seen it. Is it possible eventually somewhere in this process?
It was, I think
They
we
sent
got-
it.
It was emailed to all of
They
us.
sent it to
Yeah.
us.
It came from the
One of
county.
the updates
Apparently I missed it then. Yes.
came from
The
the county.
chair, the County Board of Supervisor Chair,
Okay.
Scott Sauer,
That's all right.
sent me a hard copy and then an email out to all the council.
My good friend and staff will help me and get another copy sent to me because I have no clue. I've never read it.
basically, it expressed that they felt that there were issues with the service being provided.
I
and
got
that's why
that,
they
but I'd
were-
just like to read it. I mean,
and that would, basically what I want to get to is, are we providing the right service? Do we need to make changes? Are we doing golden? Maybe it's all good. I don't know.
Well, yeah, okay. I don't have a problem with the committee, I mean, especially since the at-large councilmen have to be on it. Wave at me. Okay. But, I'd just like to read the
My only thing is just the incorporating of the outside. If they're no longer involved in it, that would be a challenge for me as far as it, I mean, yeah, I guess you could probably get their feedback, but we're no longer gonna be issuing them permits anyway.
So what's the point?
Other than that, I'm not opposed to reviewing it, because obviously if we are, in the effort of what you're saying, transparent, then there shouldn't be anything to be concerned about as far as those reviews coming back and saying, how are we operating, or how are we providing a service for a city, because ultimately the city is our customer. And so the constituents and the businesses and the homeowners, we are there to serve them. So ultimately, if we are providing a good service, or we're not, or we need to make a small adjustment, we'll address that, obviously, in that. I'm just concerned about including the county in that,
So,
because we're no longer issuing, nor
Right.
we are not involved in them, and we've already had their feedback. So I don't know if the county's even gonna be open to that and saying, hey, you're gonna go to other businesses and review that.
what if we change, and I want to ask Nancy if she knows if we would have to then move this to a different agenda, but what if we scratch a line here where the last line in number 3 towards the bottom, where it says that the permitting process review committee will attempt to maintain a balance between the two designations in the permits reviewed?
I would rather just incorporated areas of the city versus
Or
just taking out the unincorporated areas of the Muscatine County, because technically, we are no longer part of that.
Well,
That's
I
all.
did, as council suggested at our meeting last time, I have sent a letter to the County Board of Supervisors asking them if they would extend the 30-day notice that they gave us. And I have not heard back yet. In all fairness, it just recently went out, so I'm sure they haven't even seen it yet. So,
I wouldn't have a problem with scratching that line, Santos.
Okay.
As far as because then it still fits in there where it says maintain a balance between the two, because we're still talking about residential and commercial.
That's all I mean, ultimately.
And then if we
I'm
scratch the
concerned
part-
more around the city, not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, we're no longer part of it. If we were to further outreach out, and they came back and said, hey, we're willing to do that, then I could say that
Sure.
would be different, but.
and one would think if there was a serious problem, it would be in all areas, so if you just picked a sample. And I'm sure it's gonna show that, we're providing good customer service.
So yeah, so if we we could just scratch line number 3 out completely, but we could also take it out halfway and leave in the last line that says that we'd maintain a balance between the two designations. And if we scratch number 3, Nancy.
Well, when you make your motion, you can just add that in. to
Okay.
the motion.
Amend the
Okay,
motion.
I wasn't sure. Nancy and I'd had a
Well,
conversation.
it wouldn't be a
the other day,
motion, it
so-
would be a resolution.
Let's move to approve the resolution, then you'd have to amend the
Then you
resolution.
have to
Right.
to amend the resolution.
The membership of the committee, there's no city staff. How are you gonna do this? You set out the membership of the committee, but don't you need somebody from city staff to do this work?
Do we?
Yeah?
Don't you just need them to supply the documents to you?
That's what I'm asking. It makes sense to me that somebody from community development is involved to help do this,
Okay.
you know.
I mean, my thought on that was that we can make the request to Greg, and Greg can, as staff has time, have them provide the documents to us.
I'm sure community development is not really busy. They don't mind.
Was there any other changes?
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, so this is then where
Yes.
so I make a motion first for the resolution?
Make a motion first for the resolution.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution. Do we have a number on it? No, the resolution to form the ad hoc subcommittee.
I second.
It's a resolution, so we need a roll call. Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
Did you want, I'm just,
And then we were
did you
going to
want to
do
do
an
an
amendment.
amendment? Well, you do the amendment first.
Yes,
So you don't need a roll call vote now.
so go ahead and do the
Okay,
amendment.
so then, and then make a motion.
I think since this is a draft, you can include the resolution striking that area.
That's what I thought too.
Okay, okay.
And do it all in one.
could do
Right, and that's
Yeah.
what I was, okay, that's what so,
Yes, go ahead and make the motion with the adjustment.
right, so I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution with striking line 3 that states the permitting process review committee will review permits from the unincorporated areas of Muscatine County as well as permits from within the incorporated areas of the city of Muscatine. The permitting process review committee will attempt to maintain a balance between these two designations in the permits reviewed. So that line should be struck.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Malcolm to form an ad hoc committee. Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
I do have a question for us now. Based on this, are we voting on having this formalized for next week, or are we actually going to approve it tonight?
This is forming the committee.
So this is it.
This is the approval of forming the committee, and then the committee will.
All right, I'll vote no.
Councilman Spread?
Okay.
Councilman Malcolm?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
No.
We have 4 ayes and 3 nays. The resolution is adopted with 4 ayes. Excuse me. We are now on number 5 tonight, and we are going to have a demonstration on a proposed video project. I have been looking for ways to share the positive things with the community that are going on within the city, whether it be the wonderful things that our staff and the departments are doing, or our nonprofits. I recently learned all kinds of things that are happening down at Sunset Park with the Flickinger Learning Center. It's amazing the things that they're doing with the children down there, and my guess is a lot of the community is not aware of that. And so to that end, I have been working on putting together a video each week where we could highlight some of the positive things that are going on in our community and let the people see what we all know, which is how good Muscatine really is and how fortunate we are to be here. I've asked Chad if he would start us off and show a demo. We put together a short demo just explaining a little bit about what it would look like. This is a project that I would really like to work on with council. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward, and I think this is an ideal way to make that happen and tell our story. So what we're talking about basically is a weekly live stream that would be on YouTube, Facebook, could be on Muscatine Power and Water Cable. All of the technology is already here. It wouldn't cost anything at all. We can just do it right there in the mayor's office once a week. And what I'd really like to do is bring in a city department, talk to the department head about the things that they're working on at the time, help them inform the community. Sometimes it's easy to for the public to not know everything and base their opinions on wrong and misinformation. And this would give an opportunity for us to give that positive information. Chad, are you ready to start with the short demo?
I am. Hi, Mayor, Council, Chad Yoakum, 3225 Mulberry Avenue, representing Media Tree, local video production company and live streaming service. We'll see a demo here that we have put together. Hopefully we'll have the audio play. Let's see. Hopefully, bear with me while we figure out the audio part of it.
I could hear it, Chad.
What's that?
I could hear it, just quiet.
Just
Okay.
real quiet.
Yeah, these speakers should work, I hope. They, very rarely get used, I think, but try again.
Would it attest to the fact that it worked earlier?
Did it?
Yes, it did.
Two. All right, it's a little better.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our city. I'm Mayor Diana Broderson, and I want to bring some information to you. Today, we have with us our guest, Mr. Dave Gobin. He is the Development Director for the City of Muscatine, and he's going to explain to us everything we ever wanted to know about lighting zones and why we are one now. Well, I've had a lot of people ask me about how the pedestrians walk across. Can you explain those new gate systems?
Yes, I will, and also tell you some additional pictures. The first thing is that we created with chicanes. And chicanes are a lot like Disney World, where you go up one side rope and down another and down another. And their purpose is to put a lot of people in a small space,
Right.
in an organized way. In our case, we're doing it to force people to look up the tracks and down the tracks by making the turns before they exit across and cross the tracks. And then you're into the next set of chicanes, but we're going to be improving on those.
Oh, how?
Yeah, we're going to be expanding the width of them to accommodate bicycles with trailers
That was my next
and
question.
double bikes.
Now, another question is the safety, but it's my understanding that the engineers can still blow the horn if they feel it's necessary. Is that accurate?
But by regulation, yeah, they have the right and discretion to, if they see something on track, they will vote one.
Even if it is quiet?
And if it is a quiet zone, and we want that.
Of course.
We want that for safety purposes, we like their discretion. There's three reasons why it's really beneficial to the community to have a quiet zone.
What are they?
One of the safety features that are upgrades, features and upgrades, that really elements.
And you're talking about the fact that we put into place all of these other safety things, so just those upgrades.
Upgrades. And then a second reason why is that there's an actual quality of life that happens for about a third of the population as they condense as you get closer to town.
Sure.
And that we better at night, and all kinds of things like that.
Okay.
And so there's a quality of life benefit. And thirdly, not necessarily less, the smallest, is the economic impact. When the train horns were blowing, it was about 123 decibels at the track. Without the horns when they go by, it's about 85 or so decibels. So they added a lot to the noise. But at the same time, every 10 decibels you drop, it valuations allow people to reinvest in probably more into the downtown. And we're gonna see a lot more outdoor dining and things like that here at the Golden Ones, I think.
And public safety has got to be our top priority. And with this making Hardwick more safe because of all of the upgrades that were done, to the roofs. Thank you, Dave, for coming and sharing information with us on the Muscatines Railroad Quiet Zone. Now let's take a look at the great things happening down at Sunset Park and the Learning Center for the Children.
If you've ever driven around Muscatine, you've probably been past the Sunset Park Apartments, a city-managed public housing facility sitting just next to the soccer complex off the house. However, most people are not aware of the innovative accomplishments that have been made toward breaking the cycle of poverty in our community. The Sunset Park Learning Center has been home to an ambitious and professionally staffed after-school training program since 2011, offering enrichment learning, skill reinforcement, and fun, structured homework help in a modern and safe classroom environment. As studies continue to prove, the majority of low-income children arriving at kindergarten are already significantly behind in communication structure and language understanding. This achievement gap not only persists over time, but also it causes our children to feel socially isolated and then a budding resentment for school and education normally following. Sunset Park is home to approximately 60 Muscatine school-age children, over 40 of which are in the critical development grades of K through 5. The after-school program provides these children with a professionally structured and staffed academic enrichment program that is open as soon as the children step off the bus every single day of the school year. As studies have shown, when educational opportunities are linked to a student's home, it is easier to coordinate efforts for success, provide additional opportunities for learning, and consistently apply strategies for improvement. When a child has the access to individualized, compassionate guidance, their enthusiasm for education grows, and their self-confidence in their own abilities skyrockets. Believing the right thing to do for the individual low-income child is also the smart investment for our community's future. The Sunset Park after-school program continues to actively engage Muscatine's future generation on a daily basis. The Muscatine Municipal Housing Agency provides many other programs for low-income families in Muscatine County, including a family self-sufficiency program, home ownership education, credit and cash flow coaching, Section 8 rental vouchers, and elderly housing opportunities. To find out more, please call City Hall. Phone number 563-264-1554.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next time on our next episode of Our City. I'm your Mayor, Diana Broderson. Please call me if you have any questions, and thanks again.
So that's just a short demo of what the show would look like each week. I think this information is really valuable to the community. I'm just certain that a lot of people don't realize those types of services that our city staff is doing, and as well as thanking the staff for the hard work that they're doing as well. And this is something that we've been working on. Chad, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Not unless there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one question. How long would the segments be? This was about 10 minutes, but are you planning what?
Well, yeah, that demo was 10 minutes for, purposes of trying to show you as much as the program would
What
benefit.
I'm trying to find is it going to be like a half an
Probably a
hour,
half hour.
15?
Sometimes
hour,
it would vary.
45.
There is no time constraints. It's not. We're not going up against any like 30-minute or 60-minute time block. So if some episodes may be 30 minutes, some may be 40, depending on the conversation, the guests, the topics.
Okay.
Really wanted to focus on the positive things that are going on. And I'm very interested in having others help me put together the list of the guests each week. And I would love to have council be one of the guests, work our way through. I'm sure Phil has a lot of stories to share.
Be sure you gotta hang drywall.
I just wonder are you producing?
Yeah, this would be a production that I would do through Media Tree.
And so what is the cost of this?
There will be no cost. A project like this, I have the capability, I own the equipment to do it.
Okay.
You know, a project with this much potential, positive impact in the community, it's worth more to do it and to profit from it. That's not why I'd like to do it. Have the ability and think that it's the right thing to do.
So is it going to be broadcast on the local cable channel then too?
It can be. I mean, it can.
One of the public access channels as that.
Yeah, you know,
2 or 9
where
or
it can
whatever.
be distributed at is unlimited. You know, whether the council would decide Channel 2, the channel that this is airing on right now, would be the appropriate place, and then that can be arranged.
That would be an expense, so that's $50.
Well, that would be
Isn't it?
the price, the same price that is already currently being paid for the technician that operates the equipment now for the council meeting. So there would be no additional cost beyond probably, I'd guess, 3 hours of the tech time that is already being billed from the MCC video department. It's roughly $50.
But the other places, it could be for nothing.
Right, like
I mean,
YouTube and such.
Right.
So would the fee that would be there, though, would that be something that was recurring, or is that like a one-time setup? Or?
Well, no, that would just be the hourly rate for the person to, 'cause the reason that would exist is because to get the feed onto Channel 2, it would have to come up through this equipment and go through the modulator, and that would take a tech to do it, to operate it.
If it was done live?
Yeah.
What if it was or is it the same thing if it's going to be just
No,
played
if
back
it was
later?
if it was just to be played back, there wouldn't be a fee for that per se.
Okay.
I just think the Power and Water audience would kind of be missing out though, because it would be live on YouTube, Facebook,
right?
Whatever, multiple different places that we would want to put that. But it would be Power and Water customers might like to also be able to watch it live. But
Sure. Yeah, I like the concept a lot.
Overall, I like the concept. I think it's a good thing to do. I do wonder, particularly the last segment, I saw a lot of faces, a lot of children. Do we have to do something in the way of getting releases signed by parents and guardians and things like that?
That's a good question. That not
I don't
every
know.
episode would feature the
think
children.
so.
That was just for this demo. But yeah,
Most centers, the parents sign a video release and a picture release when they start them up. At least we do it all of ours.
all right, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if
Yeah,
this
so
were
it would
the
be in
real
their
show,
file.
we would cover that base.
Obviously, that'd be something that would have to be checked into and confirmed, whether that would be an issue or not.
Jody's telling me, yes, they have releases in their files.
Oh, okay.
Housing administrator,
But
Jody.
that would
Brown
cover
Goodwin.
this type of a video?
Yes, they can sign off that their photos can be when they enroll in the program. And I don't think the city has a lot of programs other than us in the library that this issue would apply to.
Any other questions?
Just,
Chad?
not for Chad, more for the actual show content. Does this replace Coffee with the Mayor, or is this just another addition to our city?
I hadn't really thought about that. They're two completely different things. Coffee with the Mayor is more of a discussion time and people ask questions, and I'm not looking at like questions for this. This is more just a positive information.
Like a Muscatine infomercial to
Yes,
spotlight
yes.
different things that we have going on.
Right.
Okay. And
And the quiet zone, a lot of people had a lot of questions about the quiet zone, And there's a lot of misinformation out there. And when they can get the right information, sometimes people then come to better decisions and better conclusions.
I know.
But yes, it wouldn't be like a discussion format,
Sure,
except for
sure.
with the guest.
Right. And you had talked about having, what was in the document you'd said about a group that would help pick the content?
Well, I was thinking about just a way to have other people be engaged in helping come up with the guest speakers. I mean, I've done things like this before, and after a while you start thinking, okay, who's going to be my next guest?
Right.
And so having that input, and you know, a lot of times staff will know, staff will
Right,
know
that's what I was
some
thinking.
of the hot topics already. Yeah, so I copied Kevin, our communications director, on the emails that I've been sending out to the council. So, because certainly he's one that I'm going to want to lean on to help me know what the hot topics are and work our way through the city departments. We could take years before we got through all of that
Sure.
information.
Maybe the chamber would have some suggestions
Oh, yes.
too. And
I've
things
talked to the chamber already. They also were on board with it being a good idea of, you know, we need to get that positive information out.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's there. It's just a matter of sharing it.
Yeah, and our citizens deserve it, really, the public. It's nice to have an outlet that's professional, a committed program that people can count on to bring them information that they may not otherwise understand.
Sure.
So how many times would you be doing it per week or per month, or what do you? I mean,
Thinking of it being a weekly.
I'm just thinking of the value that would be available of time versus it would be almost recurring, and you may not have that much views or attendance. And
From what I'm hearing, we could probably do a daily show and not run out of topics.
We can
But I don't
highlight the
have time for
trails.
that, so I think we would stick with the weekly.
I think Dave's department alone would
Would.
warrant a daily show.
Well, and the stuff would all be available to watch after the fact too.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's the part to me that has some value as well, because I very rarely watch anything when it's scheduled. I don't have time.
Right.
So
And I think that's what makes it valuable also, is people can just stream it on YouTube and watch it later when times work for them. I mean, how many of us even don't just, I live with the DVR all the time. I hardly ever watch it when it's going. Everything's on DVR in the same way, you know, with YouTube, you can just watch it later.
Right, and it does promote little-known parts of our city, like the Learning Center. Like a lot of the stuff that we do in the housing department, you know, unfortunately, there's misconceptions about what we do in the housing department. So to have a vehicle to get that positive message out, you know, like that Sunset Park Learning Center, family self-sufficiency program, home ownership program, renters classes, other developments that we're currently working on, an outlet like this would be valuable to our department for sure.
And surely anytime that there's information that we need to get out right now to the community it would be an opportunity to make sure that we got that out as well.
So let me see, so far there's no cost unless we decide to broadcast to possibly Power and Water or public access, and that's about $50.
Public access there'd be no cost to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's what public access is for. Anybody from the public can contribute a program and have it played.
Okay.
It would be only if we put it on Channel 2, which is where
The government
school
channel.
board is, the county board of supervisors, and the council meetings.
And that would be simply to cover the cost of the technician to run the feed from my system into the modulator in that room there.
Sure. Okay. Is it possible we could possibly consider getting sponsors?
Well,
I don't know. Let's just get started first.
Okay.
There's a lot of details and
I
things
heard
that we, you know what, we could just
Fitzgerald
learn as we
Construction is
go.
thinking about it.
Right, right.
Chad, if it was on Channel 2, but it was just a tape and not live, would there be that $50 expense?
there likely wouldn't be. That would be a matter. Well, there'd have to be a way to get that to Channel 2. Right now, and I'm sure it'll change with the fiber, But right now, the only mode of playing something back on Channel 2 or Channel 9 is via DVD. So it would have to be transferred from the digital file and onto a DVD somehow. So yeah, there'd be some sort of, but again, you know, the bigger picture might be considering the viewer of MPW and their, you know, enjoyment of seeing it live also. If the $50 is a big deal, I'll donate it back.
And we can add that
We'll
later,
start a
right?
trust
We don't
fund.
have to start it on Channel 2.
We don't have to. But I'm anticipating there'd be a demand for it. And then, you know, I don't know, but maybe Power and Water would pay for it. But what, you know, I'm not sure of that. The technical, the relationship and who pays who with it when it comes to that. But I know
Different audiences receive the information through various forms. So I think, not to stereotype, but I think a lot of our younger generation, they're more on their phones, they're more on YouTube. But certainly my parents, or a lot of my generation even, is still on cable TV and still watching Channel 2 and Channel 9 and those. So I think it's two different audiences probably.
Correct, yeah.
Well, I do know a number of people that have talked to me about watching the council meetings
On Channel
live.
2, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Any other questions?
Ms. Nancy?
Mayor,
Yes.
just from a staff level,
Mike.
we're.
Pull your microphone up, please. Thank you.
Better?
Yes.
From a staff level, we're interested in how this will coordinate with our communications manager, so we're not duplicating or doing things at different times. And I think Kevin is here tonight if he wants to speak to some of that, but even on a staff level to avoid duplication of.
Oh, sure. Which is.
Kevin and
That's,
things
I have
for
talked
that,
with
so.
Kevin a couple of times, like last Friday actually, and seemed like that would be something that we'd work together pretty well on, help work
Kevin.
together to come up with some of the guests. Kevin?
Yes, it has always been the intention for Kevin to be involved, so that's why I emailed him with everyone, so he was on board.
First of all, I just want to say, I think this is a great idea. Anytime we can say something positive about Muscatine, it is great. This would be just another channel that we be able to do. We have Muscatine Viewpoint and City Talk that are both on Local Access 9, which is a great way to do it. We have all our social media that I help coordinate, and all the positive stuff we get in for the local media and everything. So just having somebody from the mayor's office, council members stepping up, saying positive things about Muscatine, that's what we want. That's the message that we want to send out there. So Chad and I have talked. He's, told me that he wants to work closely with me, which is the best thing in the world. There are so many stories out there, like you said, a lot of which that people would never know. I was just looking at Brian over there, as sick as he is, just thinking about the purple truck that the city put together last year, and the story about that we put out was, that it was people who were affected by cancer are the ones that worked on that truck, and it just those are the type of things that we need to get out there, and certainly the Learning Center and there's everything that the Parks and Recs are going to be doing. The only thing I would caution that if you do want it on Channel 2, you probably need to investigate that a little bit more, because that may need council action, especially if there's an expense, then we're going to have to find whose budget that's going to come out of. And then, of course, you guys being the fiscal authorities here will have to decide upon that. The other thing that was brought up is the releases. For the most part, anytime you videotape somebody or do a live show, you have to get a release from them. It's a good thing that the housing people have that waiver for the children and everything. I hope they have the same for their instructors and staff members out there too. Anytime you show somebody on camera like that who's not a public official, then we need to have those waivers. So that, you know, those are the type of things that we can work on to develop these stories. And like I said, we have 3 different video channels right now. This one that we're proposing, City Talk, and Muscatine Viewpoint, which can tell a whole range of different stories and bring in a whole range of different people. So let's just put Muscatine first and be positive, and let's go for it.
Thank you.
So, how long would we be doing this for? As far as, would we start out with a trial for a month or 2, or would we do it for 6 months? I kind of want to think that I would rather see that as a potential of saying, we see how it goes for a first couple of weeks, and then we evaluate it again before we start maybe making the moves of what you're saying of putting it on some other channel. I just want to make sure that
Maybe we could propose doing it for 3 months and then bringing it back to council, and that would give us an opportunity to make a decision if we wanted to move forward and put it on Channel 2 at that time.
I would be more in favor of something of that, just to make sure that the platform is used for a positive impact on the community. With the current litigations, those were my concerns. So I would rather say if we do it as a proposal for something and saying, hey, we do it for 2 months, I think that would more be open to that, but I don't know if I'm the only one there.
I have a question along that line for Kevin and Chad. Do you have a way of tracking the number of people that would be viewing this? So if you come back and say, you know, there's only 50 people viewing it in a month's time, then that, you know, that's
certainly.
Or there's 500 or 5,000.
I can help with that. I'm tuned into it now. The city has a YouTube channel. There are 304 videos available. There are 109 subscribers, of which I'm one. At home right now, there are 4 people watching. But
is that on YouTube or is that on live?
Every video tells you how many views there are. So that's a way to start.
Sure.
I will put in a plug for our YouTube channel. Please subscribe.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to watch the city council meetings. We have other things on there. I recently put up, in conjunction with the Quiet Zone, I put up 2 videos today. Trains going through, one on Iowa Avenue, one on Cedar, just kind of showing what it's like when these trains go through and how the cross arms work. It's a pretty good lesson to keep people from trying to drive around those cross arms with the speed of the trains and everything. But that's exactly the type of things that we're looking at doing. Facebook, it's really easy to watch the numbers and the viewers and the unique visitors. There's a whole set of statistics that we can go into. But the only other thing I would say is that anytime that any council member has a question about the content or about something that they might like to see on our show or on any of the shows we have, let me know. There's a process for doing that.
I have one question. I'm not trying to. I want to get back to what Alan had mentioned earlier, and I don't know if Chad can answer this. If it were to be on like a Channel 2, for example, can you document or can you know the number of views? Because I know you can say, like what you just said, Tom, on YouTube. On YouTube, you can say there was 400 views, 150 views. But can you see that on channel?
As Muscatine Power and Water Cable stands right now, the answer is no.
Okay.
With their new fiber network, and they have IPTV capabilities of view on demand of local programming, they may be able to track the number of views, but currently, no. But again, that's
But there may be 100 people watching it, and you wouldn't even know.
Right now, that's true for now, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
We'd have to get Nielsen after it.
What's that?
We'd have to get Nielsen ratings after.
Yeah. So I would propose a 90-day trial. I would be open to that.
I'd second that.
We can do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries with all ayes. Thank you, council. We're going to move along now to number 6, and we have a discussion of the Traffic Committee recommendations for restricting parking on Leroy Street. Public Works Director Brian Steinman.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before we get into it too much, I just wanted to, first of all, I want to apologize for my voice, and if I sniffle and cough my way through this, I've been ill for the last few days. So, secondly, I'd like to apologize for not getting council copied on the letter that was sent out initially. I think you've all got it since then. That was an oversight on my part. I apologize for that. That won't happen again. I just wanted to give a brief rundown of the Traffic Committee and what it is and what we do. I don't know that the committee is even the right word for this. It's a group of staff that serve sort of as a clearinghouse for issues as they come in related to traffic or parking or other issues like that. We meet routinely as needed to discuss these type of issues. Sometimes they're parking. There could be a request for a road closure. Could be requests for signs or speed bumps or really all kinds of different issues, crosswalks, whatever. But it's a way that we have to get staff involved so that these complaints when they come in don't get lost and nobody gets replied to. So that's kind of the impetus behind it. It's currently composed of myself, the Public Works Director, the Police Chief, the Fire Chief, the City Planner, the City Engineer, the Street Department Supervisor. There's also representatives from Muscatine Power and Water, and the Muscatine School District has representatives on there as well. Just basically anybody that has dealings with the streets or that may or may have input from one point or another. When an issue is brought up, it gets put on an agenda. I am the de facto chairman, secretary, note taker, whatever. So I create the agendas. We discuss these things mostly informally. We'll do some research as needed or as necessary. A lot of times the research is just our knowledge of the city or past issues, things like that. We're trying to find quick and easy and cost-effective solutions to these so that we can get them off of our agenda as soon as possible and get them turned around. A lot of times the action that we take can be done with staff. Sometimes it does take council recommendations for no parking or whatever, which is why we come to you. And if we have an issue that we think is going to affect multiple people or could be controversial, then we invite the public to come and we have an open discussion, which is the reason what we're doing this tonight. So that brings me to the Leroy parking issue. It was brought to us by a resident through Councilman Fitzgerald. We also did receive some input from Councilman Spread. It started out as a request for no parking across from the alley by Amherst. We looked at that. We looked at the curve because there's currently no parking on the curve. I should probably put the map up now. So there's currently some piecemeal no parking on there. There's no parking here to alley in this. I don't know that there's actually a campground there, but whatever. And then there's no parking around the curve right here, and then the rest is no parking on the north side, but you can park on the south side. The street width there is 26 feet, curb face to curb face, the entire length of the street. We went out and measured to make sure of that. So if you have a car parked and you're passing vehicles, you have about 8.5 feet to pass a vehicle if there's a parked car. Typical lane widths are anywhere between 11 and 12 feet. So the committee, during our discussion, we decided if, instead of having piecemeal no parking here, there, skip a space, make it confusing, what if we just took no parking off the whole street and nobody parked on the street? And we thought, everybody on that has access to driveways. So if you live there, you should be able to park in your driveway. We're not saying, this isn't a recommendation, I should say that, it's a proposal. We wanted to get feedback from the community. I think there are several of them here that we'll invite them up to speak. With that, I promised Mrs. Weber that I would discuss her letter. She was one of the residents on the street. Christine Weber, she came to my office and visited with me a while back and had some very interesting questions. I think you guys all saw her letter. I told her that I would answer those here at the meeting tonight. So I'll just kind of read through it briefly, but how many complaints have actually been received over what period of time, and exactly what are the specific concerns? I addressed that briefly. We had 3 concerns or complaints about the no parking on the curves. The time frame was within January, started in January, and we had our first meeting, discuss it in the first week of
You
February.
had 3 people
3 complaints.
about people parking on the curb where they weren't supposed to?
The 3 complaints in overall about the parking on the street.
Okay.
So, are the concerns raised by residents of Leroy Street? Yes. Are these concerns a result of increased traffic flow caused by current existing detours? We do not know that. Are these concerns as a result of people not following current parking limitations and/or speed limits? We are unsure of that one as well. Is there a pattern to these concerns related to the specific time of day and/or traffic flow? We don't know that one either. We just have the 3 complaints. Has a traffic study been done on Leroy Street? Nope. Has the committee reviewed the cost impact of removing on-street parking? No. As I mentioned, we're just looking for cost-effective, quick, and easy solutions. Has the traffic committee reviewed the cost, value, impact of other solutions, concerns raised, such as widening Leroy Street, broadening some of the areas? We haven't looked at any of that at this point, just because, like I said before, we're looking for an easy solution that would be equitable. So that's where we are at this point. I think that answers most of our questions. I just wanted to share that information with City Council. City can do whatever you'd like to do here. Ultimately, the decision will be up to City Council if we choose to increase or decrease the no parking areas. That requires council action. We don't necessarily have to have that tonight unless you move and second it and all that kind of stuff to do that. We can do that certainly. I don't really have anything to add unless you'd have any questions for me. Otherwise, I would turn it over to the residents and let them.
So you're not necessarily looking for anything tonight?
No, I wanted to have the public information brought forward. I wanted to give the residents a chance to speak if they wanted to. And then if council would like to discuss it, make a recommendation that we can follow, that's fine. If not, I'll take what I hear from them and I'll revisit it with the traffic committee, and we can come back with a recommendation for action at a later council meeting.
Okay.
I have one question.
Sure.
You mentioned about as far as reviews. We haven't really done a lot of reviews as far as traffic studies or times or any of those natures. Did we do any evaluations of what the cost would be to potentially, widen any of those areas?
We did not do one for this. I can
So we can pretty much say what the square footage is, what the lengths are. You can probably do a pretty good estimate before we
could do that.
Say, hey, this is what the cost would be versus us removing that, because I'm in the favor of thinking that it would be at least a good point to look at before we made a decision on saying, hey, there's no parking there.
Like I said, at this point, we're open to any suggestions from council or the residents. I just wanted to put it out there in the public.
I would like to make that request, at least to make the evaluation, to say, okay, if we are from the points that you're wanting to make the no parking, at least to say what would be the cost?
To widen the street, to add parking?
Widen the street, just before we can have that number. That way we can say, okay, you're at $500,000, or you're at $150,000 if we take over this portion of the right-of-way, and now we have this portion, and then we're at 32 feet wide from point to point, and then you have that clearance at least 12 feet, so you're not into those potentials.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think a challenge for me is the homeowners are here probably not to come in and tell us that they want to lose their parking.
I would assume so.
Good guess.
I don't think that's the thing. And so obviously I don't want to waste their time coming up and giving us that opinion. I think that that's where we're at. If they want to come up, that's fine. But I also want to know, if we don't have that information from a traffic study, we haven't asked cost, we don't have any information to be able to determine that, then I think that I don't feel that I'm in that position to be able to say anything other than what I would ask for that request at least.
Yeah, I would say that any expense to widen the street to create larger parking spaces.
Or safer ability, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to avoid the accidents where the parking's there. And I don't know if I don't have any accidents reports, if I don't have near misses, or hey, somebody almost got hit. Those would be all valid concerns.
I would say it would not be a cost-effective solution to widen the street at this point, just for traffic, for parking on street.
I would agree.
So I would probably say that as well too, but if we don't even have that number, then I can't really even say that.
If you drive that, the north side is the sidewalk's pretty close to the curb, and I know that the utility poles, if you're driving down through there, that's the utility poles are really close.
I saw some on
Really
one side,
close
and then
to
I
the
saw some
curb.
on the other side that were wide
We
inside.
do have a barometer. It cost a little over $400,000 to do Cleveland Street last year.
Yeah.
So imagine,
We can, at least if we can look at that,
can
and that
get
way
you-
we can
yeah.
have that, and then if we said, hey, yeah, we had three complaints versus we had 7 accidents, those are all important for me to be able to come back on.
do any of those
Let's
complaints,
talk one at a time,
Yeah.
please.
I'm done.
Are you done? Go ahead.
do any of those complaints involve accidents?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, the individual that contacted me was concerned because he's had, there's been 3 accidents where they've backing out of driveway and hit somebody, whether it was a parked car or whatever. So there have been accidents. I don't know whether they were actually reported or whether they just took care of it. If it's not a certain dollar amount, you don't have to report it. The initial response when I contacted Brian was, or not respond, my comment to him was, this person is looking to have no parking at this section across from his driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And there's already some no parking near that. And in my email to Brian was, I've traveled this, my wife travels it daily. This is not fun when you're in a full-size van or vehicle. A small vehicle, fine, but a big vehicle, you meet another pickup, and one of you better be stopping. So I just suggested that maybe we have the traffic committee look at no parking on Leroy. And I think then Tom chimed in.
Yeah, I am a heavy user of that street as well, and I have noticed in the last perhaps 6 to 9 months that there are more vehicles parked, particularly in that area between Mulberry and Orange. And where it becomes an issue is in the morning when folks are taking their kids over to Grant School and there's a school bus coming, it's tight in there and it's busy,
Yeah, and I think I spoke to maybe the same person that Phil did. And the way I understood the story was that people from at their house backing out had hit other cars that were parked.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, the whole street would be an issue. I would not want to see no parking on the whole street for multiple reasons. One, because it would reduce the usability of the residents in that area, but also because it would increase the speed at which people drove on that street. I use that street pretty heavily as well. I actually drove it last night just to make sure I was clear on everything on that, and nearly had an accident myself, but it was maybe we could look at a deer crossing sign. There was about 5 or 6 that trotted across the street in front of me as I was going down that section at Amherst. But yeah, I think maybe an extension of the no parking would be something we could consider. I would absolutely be opposed to the whole street being made no parking, but around the dog leg, that might be a section to consider a little bit of an extension beyond what it is. And maybe one of the residents that I spoke to had also suggested maybe repainting the yellow in the no parking area to make it a little bit more clear to people that that's no parking.
So also, Brad, since everybody's throwing possibilities out there, and I know you got plenty of time to do this, how about considering the target area that's probably being most negatively affected? What would it take for us to expand that the dog leg there? My wife and I went and drove it and walked it, so I know the area pretty good now. But just in that one little area, if we can expand it and made it maybe wider, going up to Mulberry,
So are you talking like the 705 area, the curve right here, correct?
Yes.
That's the area we're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of like, maybe make it kind of like a funnel thing where it's open, bigger, and,
Yeah.
We're not gonna do it yet, but, let's find out what
I can get a price for anything you want, so we'll just.
Well, my thing is I hate to use staff time for something that probably isn't going to happen. And so at this point in time, I would probably recommend that we just address the individual's spot across from his driveway and go from there, because It's no parking to a point. They allow parking in a very short period or section, and then it's no parking from there to the corner. I mean, that would resolve the issue. We don't have to have the whole
Right.
neighborhood irritated at me.
I was gonna say.
And most of them, you know, and I've received Mrs. Weber, that I had him in school a long time ago. He lives on the corner, and when you round that corner, it is tough. Having people come over, the other thing was, I think on Amherst, I think that's how it's pronounced, Amherst, there's complaints of people from other areas of Leroy parking on that side street. There's another one on the other side that goes out to Marquette, I think it is. They're also parking their boats and RVs and stuff along that, and they make it impassable during certain times of the year. So, you know, people need to realize that there's a, was it 48-hour restriction on parking a vehicle on city street. Is it 24? Okay. But, so you do need to move it, but you need, moving it 4 foot forward will take care of the ticket, but it doesn't resolve the issue.
Right.
But I guess at this point, I would move back to a minor problem and not propose to have no parking. Somebody told me there was also a proposal years ago about making this a one-way and Woodlawn a one-way in the other direction. I don't remember that, so.
I remember hearing rumors about it,
Either I
but
was
who knows?
dazed off or whatever that night, I don't know.
Must have been 45 years ago.
Just a long time ago.
Yeah, I would agree with Phil on that. I think that extending the no parking just enough was really what we should look at. And as far as coming up with a cost to widen it, if it's a matter of 3 clicks and a spreadsheet to give you the answer, then yeah, I'd love to see that number. But if it's more work than that, then I wouldn't.
I would have a hard time making any changes until I had some data on actual recordable accidents on that street for the last X number of years. If there's no accidents, then in my mind, it really doesn't justify making any changes.
I can attest to the number of near misses that I've had.
Near misses don't count.
When I have to hit my brakes so that somebody doesn't hit me, they count
Enough
for me.
near misses will get you in an accident regardless of what it is.
Yes,
So-
it will.
So,
I would just, again, I would like to see where you're talking about when we make that suggestion. I'm open to what Tom and Kelsey and Phil are talking about. I would like to be able to at least, if we're gonna make put that on the agenda for another item, I'm open to just saying if this is where the concern is in one area
yeah.
only.
The no parking would
The
have.
no parking
would-
in between,
would
parking and no
probably
parking
be
again.
from Amherst. It's already from Amherst back because of
Extending it.
the kids, but basically from Amherst Orange, I think would
I
probably
would
take
be
care of.
open, and that way you can set that up with a picture and say, hey, this is the area from this point to this point.
There's already a bunch of no parking in that vicinity anyway.
Yep.
there's currently a no parking here to Alley, there's right there.
Or
I don't know what the address of this house is, but from here to the alley. This house faces Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from here to the alley, there's no parking allowed there.
Okay.
In between.
So,
Well, I guess, rather than further delay this out,
yeah,
what
you
I'll
can
do,
get
we'll
us
take
a
this
little
back to
map or
committee.
something.
Yeah, we'll take this back to the committee. We'll get some numbers and we can evaluate that more. I just wanted to, when we first went through the exercise of reviewing it, the suggestion from the committee was, let's go ahead and just take it off, see what happens. We saw what happens and that's fine. That's part of the process,
yeah,
so,
that's fine.
exactly.
okay.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anybody here that would like to add any comments? Please come to the podium and state your name and address. Right up here.
I know I'm not going to be very popular after but My name is Stephanie Bologna, and I do live on Leroy Street, and I'm actually here to say that I supported removing parking on the street. Leroy is a really busy street, and it's used as like a cutoff street for many people, employees and staff and parents dropping off their children at Grant School, which is off of Berry. And it's also used by many staff and employees at the hospital. So the road is really busy. And I know somebody mentioned that it's dangerous when you're in a full-size van. I drive a Honda Civic, which is a pretty small car, and it's still a very dangerous situation every day. I work at Public Health, so I'm heading to the clinic there by the hospital. And when you have cars, and there have been recently more and more cars parked there for long periods of time, when I am heading from my house down towards Mulberry and a car is coming the opposite way, they have to swerve into my lane to go around the cars. And they really should be yielding to me the right of way, but they don't. So I've had to slam on my brakes I don't know how many times every morning when I'm going to work to avoid an accident. And it's a very scary situation. And I know the road's really narrow, particularly from Mulberry to Berry, and then it widens a little bit from Berry down to Bidwell. But I'm in favor of outlawing the parking on both sides of the street. And I think an issue that hasn't been addressed is speed. And I know the speed enforcement vehicle has been on our street many times, and I'm not really aware of how many tickets have been issued when it's been on there, but I've been told it's a pretty high number. Where I would even, and I know this is going to be controversial, and I'm probably not going to be the most popular person, but I would even like to see a speed bump on Leroy, because it is absolutely ridiculous. Not so much coming up the hill from Bidwell towards Mulberry, but with traffic coming from Mulberry down Leroy, it is absolutely ridiculous. And there are children that walk on that sidewalk every single day to Grant and back. And I just know that there's going to be somebody seriously hurt or something like that if we do not get control of the number of speeders on that road. And it's all times during the day. My husband leaves for work at 4:30 every morning, and there's routinely 2 vehicles that he's been trying to, for the police department, to get their license plate number, and hasn't been able to. That speed down there even at 4:30 in the morning. So I actually came to support it tonight, and I know that's not a popular opinion, but I just really think it would be in the best interest of everyone to, and I know that that's going to take parking from some people that live on the street, but it really is a safety issue. So
Thank you, Mrs. Bologna.
yeah,
Can I get your address, please?
825 Leroy.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Please.
My name's Chad Klein. Just gonna piggyback.
You need to, you
Yes.
need to talk into the microphone.
Hang
then-
on.
Down to you then? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can hand them to him.
And-
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And then state your name and address, please.
Chad Klein,
Chad Klein.
913 Leroy.
Use the mic, Chad. Talking to the mic.
There you go.
913 Leroy Street.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's my first council meeting.
It's okay.
I'm a little nervous.
Welcome.
It's all right. Just talk to me.
Okay, yep. So I want everyone to get a copy of these and send them. It's a little pamphlet that I've kind of prepared for everybody.
Thank
to kind
you.
of, so I'm piggybacking onto hers, saying that, this is a large artery street. It's connecting Mulberry and Bidwell, and it's a very popular street. I've lived in this residence for now 8 years. This April Fool's Day, not a fool's. And I enjoy living there. I just refinanced my home. I am a single person with 2 vehicles, and park one in my carport, and the other one I use the street for. As I understand, Mr. Fitzgerald, yes, vehicles have enlarged. And so, again, I have a neighbor across the street. He's lived there 35 years. Another neighbor beside me, she's lived there 35. I had said there was kind of a discussion of enlarging the street. And then that kind of fizzled out. So, me just kind of starting off at the very beginning of this whole little photo shoot that I did, I had a letter from the city stating that I need to remove a bush. The bush was then declared that it was a city problem because it was between the road and my sidewalk. So Nick Gow and crew came and removed it. I mean, thank you to the city for that. But the sidewalk then ends 25 feet in front of my home. Continuing after that, there's 50 foot to the Bidwell corner. There's no sidewalk whatsoever, okay? That was in 2010. That letter stated that I removed this bush. So then after that, I get a ticket from the city cop blocking the sidewalk that ends, and that's page 3, you would be on page 3, dated 6/18/16, blocking the sidewalk, saying that I cannot park a vehicle then there after removing the bush. Okay, so the next picture shows on page 4, the sidewalk ends, I point that out, there's my Camry sitting there in the carport, the next huge slot there is plenty of vehicle space for myself, okay? Next page states, and I show you 45 to 50 foot of where there's no sidewalk and an ending to Bidwell. 20 foot of which sidewalk is just in front of my home. So nobody walks. I mean, I live there 8 years, I have a deck, I watch people. They walk right past my driveway out into the other street and over to the neighbor's sidewalk because there's no sidewalk. There's no sidewalk in Bidwell either. Nobody walks there. Just stating that out there. Next picture, I put my car on the hill coming down, showing that it's right there. There's a sign that says from here to corner, no parking. Again, showing the sidewalk. This is Bidwell sign looking up Leroy. I'm the last house on the left. I'm the very last house. I see all the high traffic, all the bad near misses you guys are talking about, the terrible whatever. 8 years I lived there. There's been one fender bender to a friend of mine and one total car that was on that hill from a drunk driver in 8 years. So there's one of your, for me to sing alone. So some fact to your fiction or whatever. The next picture shows my car sitting right in front of the no parking sign from here to corner. My car is not on the curb or it's sitting there just perfectly fine. Cars, buses, everyone's gone by it just fine on the end of the street. So there shows my home, there shows Bidwell sign. The last final picture shows where the bush was removed. They removed a bush, and then my car is sitting there. Now, looking up the street, you would see, okay, it's a little bit of blocking view, a bit, the car. But it's either here, the street, or nowhere for me. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. I just refinanced. If I go to sell, who's gonna buy? I mean, it's just
So you're saying they don't want you to park your car there because it blocks the site?
Sidewalk. I've gotten a police ticket, and that's what you're
Blocks
saying.
the sidewalk?
Correct.
But the sidewalk ends right there?
Correct.
Well, but
I see what you're
but
saying.
it's blocking the sidewalk.
But nobody walks on the sidewalk.
Well,
I understand.
I
And then the
understand.
city
How
cop.
how
I
many
understand.
feet?
20 foot is what I measured. The
It's
sidewalk.
20 foot from your car to the
From the
end
driveway-
of the sidewalk?
From the driveway to the end of the sidewalk.
Okay,
And then 45 to 50 foot where there's no sidewalk to Bidwell's stop sign.
I see.
Correct. Twice as far where no one walks. But in this sense, I'm just saying that there's room. I mean, there's plenty of room, and there's more accidents at the end where Bidwell and Leroy meet versus on the street where I'm at. And saying just my whole thing is enlarging the street and, and where you need it to be, but people need to park on the street. And that's all I have to say, And you can keep all of this for yourselves because.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Line up.
Oh,
If you stand up over there,
Please.
then you'd be ready.
please state your name and address.
My name's Tom Reefer. I live at 608 Leroy Street. And one thing that hasn't been brought up is the property value. I had to travel this week, or I was going to do more research, but from what I've seen, it's going to reduce our property values 10 to 20% by taking the off-street parking. And that has not been brought up. I drive a full-size pickup. I pass full-size pickups that are parked with full-size pickups coming at me. I don't hit anything. So maybe people need to go to driving school. Serious. My daughter and I, we laugh at people because they pull over thinking we need room, and we go right through there.
That was my point.
I have the same issue, and I drive a Suburban.
Yeah, so it's not an issue of not being able to fit. It's an issue of people not being able to drive. And a bigger one that we're all talking about over there is the speed. You put that black car there, that's an irritant, not a deterrent. You put a cop car out there, give tickets, people see the flashing lights, they slow down. Speed bumps, people slow down for the speed bump and then go on speeding.
Yeah.
We, about 2 years ago, we went through an issue like this on Woodlawn, and they requested the temporary speed bump.
Yeah,
It
I
really
remember
didn't
that.
have an impact.
Yeah, exactly. So
And they stole it.
They stole the speed bump?
It's gone. There are no speed bumps anymore.
Yeah, no
The
speed bump.
Temporaries are the real ones, so.
So, and about, maybe it's about 6, 7 years ago, they did redo the curbs up on my end of the street, and I asked, can you widen this while you're doing it? And nobody ever replied back to me. So if you are gonna widen it, you're gonna tear something up that you just put in, basically. So somebody should have thought of this earlier, if this was a big problem.
Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
We appreciate your coming down. Anyone else? Hello.
My name is Angel Nguyen, and I live at 603.
Can you please, there you go.
603 Leroy Street. Angel Nguyen is my name. Actually, the area that he had pulled up earlier, I live in between Orange and Amherst on the left side of the street if you're coming from Mulberry. And I know it's a tight area, but we live in an older part of town with cozy, quaint homes. That's why we bought them, but we all live in single drive homes, and we can't widen them. We recently widened our driveway as wide as we could, but we still can't double park there with 2 vehicles. So we live close to the school because we have a family. We're gonna have multiple cars. And so it's going to drive down our property values, and we can't even have people over if you take our parking away on the street, because there'd be nowhere for them to go, because there's no parking on Orange, no parking on Amherst. So I'd have to walk, 300 feet to find a parking spot for my own home, because we already have, our personal vehicles plus our business vehicles. So where are we going to do? If we have to move vehicles out, we have to move this car out and then pull this one in. So it will be a huge damper. I think that the speed is an issue. People need to slow down, lower the speed limit. But taking our parking away is going to really be devastating for a lot of families. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you so much. Cindy, did you get her name?
I didn't get her last name.
Ma'am, could you spell your last name, please? Nguyen. Anyone else?
Get over there.
Hi.
Hello, I'm Deb Ortiz, 713 Leroy Street. I am right at the elbow. So if you're going too fast, you can go right from Mulberry down to Bidwell, you'll go right into my yard. And let me tell you, the speed has done that. I've had tracks in my yard from people going by, too fast, hit ice, whatever else. One thing I do notice, being right at that elbow, that everybody, that's another area that people say is such a horrible place because of the width of the street. They slow down when there's parked cars there. That does help to deter some of the speeding. It is a horribly, horribly fast-paced road. I agree with the fact about having the police cars there more than those little car that, tracks the speed, because it doesn't even count on the record. So, $75, yes, but it doesn't count on the record. I love to entertain at my home. I have redone everything in my backyard to make it a very fun, entertaining place. I will have nowhere for people to park to come. And I like to party there, so we can't close the street down, no, but I do love to have guests over. And if they block and have no parking there, there's no place as it is. And one thing I was, I guess, question for the transportation or the
traffic
did
committee.
they send, or did you send letters to all the little side streets that this is going to affect with parking? Because my neighbor that lives around the corner never received it. And actually a lot of people on Leroy said they've never received this letter.
It was supposedly sent out to everyone on Leroy and the near side streets.
Okay. A later mail, okay. Yeah, because it very much affects those people on those side streets as well. And once again, the cost or the depreciation of your home's value is major. If they don't have a good place to have their visitors or parking, it's really going to depreciate our homes. So please consider that.
Thank you.
When you're voting for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jill Reynolds, 207 Amherst Avenue. So I'm one of the side streets. I'm actually the dead-end side. If you think of Berry and Leroy together, and it comes to a point at the end of Berry and Leroy there, we're kind of like the A part. If it forms an A, we're the cross middle part there. We're the dead-end side. It's also the Cinder Path used to be called. I've lived there since 1985, so 32 years, almost 33 years. So I've seen a lot in the neighborhood. I'm old. But the other part of what I've seen throughout, when we first moved there, Amherst was a cinder path as it was. It was not paved. And the city came through and did a paving on it, which is really nice, and it's starting to break up, but it's okay. But what has happened since that, and what would happen if the parking was closed on Leroy, is we're right at the crest of Amherst going down the hill. So our traffic isn't much on Amherst. And I also have hit every car behind my driveway that has ever parked there. When they move in, I warn them that I hit everyone because we are at the crest of the hill. And if you park straight behind my drive and I back out, I can't see your car until I hit it. But backup cameras have helped. But also, with that being said, at the end, toward the end of Amherst on Leroy, where they join there, we do have some residents at this time on Amherst or from Leroy that park there because they have multi-families. Their kids have grown because it is it's a starter home, which I'm still there 32 years later. But yeah, and so a lot of them have grown, their kids have grown, and they come back to visit. And the people that have grown children on Leroy, they park on Amherst when they're back out of college. And sometimes over Christmas break. And it is hard to get in our street. And I'm sure the city snow removal trucks have trouble at the end of our road. And it's difficult. And so if you do take off the parking on Leroy, that would, by as far as they have to walk, and some on Leroy already have parked there because of the far walking. There used to be, if you look on the plot maps that I've seen over the years, there is an alley that was supposed to go between those yards, but it's now people's backyards. It's the city's alley that goes through there at the dead of ours, but it's not a go-through anymore. And so they aren't even allowed, they wouldn't have a back parking is what I'm saying. So there is no other option for them. And it is a cozy, quaint neighborhood. I have a one-car garage. So you have one car. I have 2 grown children of my own and one that's married, so we have 3 adults that come home. So even when we just have our family over, it fills up Amherst, as some of the other places on families in our neighborhood are. It hasn't rolled over yet to where it's a young family neighborhood yet. It's starting to. Some are, some aren't. But that was a concern that I would have. The other concern I have, mostly besides the personal aspect of it, is I'm an elementary school secretary at Colorado. So, and having Grant being our neighborhood school, and I know a lot of the Grant employees as well as the Grant families that go there. And my kids were walkers from Grant to elementary school to Grant and then to Central Middle School. And if you fill up the side streets with cars that don't have sidewalks, or as kids do when it's a Grant Cinder Path, they walk up the whole street. And if you add more, I'm just worried about the children a lot too, and the way is if you fill up the side streets with parking where they never were before or they're not used to, and people pull out. And now Grant School parents come down and pick up their kids on our dead end, and they're really conscientious of how they're driving and stuff, and kids know. But that's another concern that you take in that you might not have thought of, is the amount of children that walk that area. And the cars do drive slower when there is parking there, and they will drive faster when there isn't. And from Amherst to Mulberry, the sidewalks are very close to the street, and I don't know that can be changed because properties are close to there. But if you take away the parking there, I understand the concern of the woman that is scared to drive through there. I drove with 2 children learning how to drive cars, and let me tell you, those cars next to you when you're driving, you go like this because you think you're going to hit a mirror. But it's very passable. With teenage drivers making it will happen. But the main point of that is the children walking across there, and if we can keep the speeds down, and I think if you take away the parking on there, as difficult as it is, I think it will be a very fast speedway. And in the past years, over the years, on the curve where the Webbers are and where Deb Ortiz is and those, there is a utility pole there, and that utility pole's been knocked down more than one time. And that's with cars parked there, and I would hate to see what that would be like if the parking wasn't there, how fast that would be. That's a concern I have, and they do lose control around that corner, even on an easy rainy night, not let alone a slick, because it's not one of the first roads that is cleared, you know, and a lot of times they just put slush down or salt right away too, and it is slippery. So if you take all those into considerations, I think that's something with the kids walking there is a main concern that I have also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's my understanding too that pole got moved at one point because it had been replaced so many times that they adjusted the location of it.
That's why they have reflectors on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone else? Come on up, Gary.
Thought I would sit at the far side, make it awkward to walk across. My name's Gary Schrock. I live at 896 Leroy Street. And so I'm just going to share how this would affect our household, just some observations and then some thoughts maybe too. How it would affect our household. We currently actually share a driveway with my neighbor. And he works swing shift, and just trying to be the best neighbor that I possibly can. We really try to consciously, because he's sometimes leaving at 2:30 in the morning, getting back home at 2:30 in the morning, vice versa. So just to be a nice neighbor, we are. My kids got tired of me preaching, don't block the wide driveway, don't block the wide driveway, you know, so. It would affect us. We have 3 to 4 vehicles, and really only have room for 2 in our driveway, and then not blocking the other Y. So that would affect us. We would have to basically kind of park in our yard, so to speak. I'm not sure what else we would do. And then also too, we just have my 84-year-old. Mother-in-law likes to drop in, visit us, and we wouldn't have any place for her to park. So, just how it would affect us. I totally agree with Tom in the fact that we've lived at our house for 21 years, and with the full intentions of getting our kids through grant school, and then half of the city would become available for us to maybe possibly relocate. But we fell in love with the neighborhood. And so I think you're right in the fact that property values will go down, and that will, we like the neighbors that we do have. It attracts, the property values do attract neighbors that will contribute to the neighborhood, and we really value that a lot. And so I would hate to see, that possible value go down. It also, now I don't know about Beth, on your end was the curbing replaced?
They had to do some road work on just where my house, because they had to put in a new pipe.
Okay, so I know at my driveway from my driveway down to Bidwell, recurbing was done in the summer of 2008. The upper half was done in 2007. So it just strikes me that we had opportunity. We had lots of opportunity 10 years ago to take care of this issue then, and that wasn't done. I don't know why that wasn't done.
Most of the issue that we had back then was the road going down towards Bidwell.
Okay.
Was always in crappy condition. And so they put it in concrete.
Yeah, I know at my driveway, from my driveway down to Bidwell, I have 4-inch curbs, recurbed, redone. This is another issue for another time, but above me, we have like 1.5 inches, or maybe not even that. It goes right into the yard. So there is no curbing there whatsoever. Yeah. And so I don't want to talk about lots of water coming down the street there, so, with no curbing, so. Anyway, those are just some observations
Thank
that I
you.
had. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary, we appreciate it. Anyone else? Hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and move along on tonight's agenda to the last thing. Discussion on a proposal to reopen a portion of Witcher Street from 8th Street to 5th Street.
I'll try to be faster with this one.
We trust you will.
Good try.
What I'm looking for tonight is just a proposal for council to consider, but if I can get consensus to proceed, I will proceed with doing some more legwork on this. I want to fly over there real quick though, just so we see what we're talking about. But upcoming here, we're going to have West Hill Sewer Construction Phase 4. Phase 4A will take out 7th Street for most of the construction season. Phase 4B is going to take out 8th Street. We're going to have an issue when we take out 8th Street because we're going to have detour problems. 8th Street's a main arterial through town, and when we remove, or when the intersection at 8th and Broadway is closed, and 8th Street is closed from Broadway towards this direction, detours become an issue. And so what we're considering at Public Works is, what if we opened up Witcher Street again? At some point in the past, before my time here, Witcher was disconnected, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
There's
You want the reason for that?
not necessarily right now, but the thought process is we could reconstruct this, pulverize the base that's there, raise the grade. I realize there's a quite a grade change in there, you know, one of the whoop-de-doo type of things. Bring that elevation up to take that out of there, then repave that street and then reopen it. That would give us access from 5th Street over to 8th Street, and it presents a very attractive detour for us when we do construct 8th Street. It's something that we would have to do probably this construction season. We feel that we could do it primarily with in-house labor to do the base, and then contract out a contractor to put the surface on top.
Would it be asphalt or concrete?
We'd have to price it out either way. Probably, I would lean towards concrete, but we could price it out either way and have competitive bids for that part of it. The city has the material to do the base, to build the base back up, the ability to check the grades, put in the stormwater management, all that stuff. What I'm asking council for tonight is, before we move forward, I want to have consensus that you're all on board with this. Before we put in the time to do the estimates, I want to have a public meeting with the residents that would be affected. I don't know the people there. I would assume that they probably like the fact that their street doesn't go through if you live there. This would definitely change that. So we want to make sure that we talk to them, but I wasn't going to go through all that legwork if council wasn't on board with doing this at all. So to be brief, that's what I'm looking for tonight. If you feel that this would be a good option for us, staff will get to work and putting together the proposal, having the public meeting, and then we could come back with some more information and have an action for you at some other time.
Okay. Brian, what is Plan B?
I'm sorry?
What is Plan B?
Plan B for the detour for this?
Yes.
We have a Plan B and a C. I don't have them memorized, but Plan B consists of somewhere back in here. No, is it? One of them is to go up around towards Lucas. One of them is to go all the way down and out towards Hershey. There's no other good way to get through there is the problem. So our consultant that's doing this for us, Stanley Consultants, is working on those alternatives, but staff's like, if we had Witcher, we'd have it made. So that's what I'm bringing to you
You're
today.
looking for a consensus
Yeah,
to look into it more.
Correct. If council thinks it'd be a good idea, we'll start the legwork, like I said, to put the public meeting, because the residents are going to want to know about this. They're going to have opinions, I'm sure, and they'll have to come meet with you, and then you'll have to vote to do it or not.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I have a quick question. Do you envision this as a temporary solution or?
No, it would be, I think that once we're done with it, if we invest in it, we would keep it open.
So on that, my question would go to, I think Phil maybe knows more about what the problem was with that street. I know a little bit about it because I noticed the blockades there when I first moved to town, and I was curious, so I asked, and it sounds like maybe at one point in time it was real fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I've heard.
Some younger generation could probably, the section where the roadway stops.
Yes.
And there's that probably 200 feet that's grass area now.
This area in here, correct?
Yeah. In that area, it's actually used to be a landfill. And so the roadway was concrete, but it would dip, and the younger generation would come up Fifth Street, which you had to do up and around the top, which was kind of fun because it was a blind corner. And then they would hit that and go airborne.
Well,
and because of the roadway condition, it gave them that opportunity.
Sure.
And at the time, the city said, we don't have a lot of traffic. We really don't want to rebuild this because I think at the time they thought that it was just going to continue to settle. But just be aware that whole section there was landfill.
Correct, and we have an opportunity to do geotech work on this, do some soil borings to see what we're dealing with there, and that's why I wasn't going to do any of that. If you just said no, forget it, then we'll do something different. But if you're on board with investigating this a little further, spending a little bit of money.
But you have an issue on Fifth where Fifth Street comes up and arounds the corner.
Right, and we would look to correct that and take that dip out of there and make improvements as part of this solution.
But the fun part was part that's closed.
We take the fun. That's what we do. We take the fun out of everything. So.
Do we have a consensus?
The only question I wanted to just comment on is what Nadine had mentioned earlier. As long as Plan B or option whatever B, the other ones are C's, if those truly are such an inconvenience, and this is obviously our best option, then I would be open to that. But I would like to at least see what those options B and C would be. That way we have something to comment to if we do get addressed by the personnel that live in those homes in that area that we're going to be opening up. And if it's going to be a permanent opening, I mean, obviously that's going to be a big difference to them.
Yes. And maybe they'll be for it, that's our
decision. And that may be, but I mean, I would, if we're going to invest into it, I would rather make it be a permanent. But I also want to make sure that when we start on 8th Street, that's going to be a huge inconvenience. So then all of a sudden that traffic's going to be what we're seeing on 3rd Street.
Right. Well, and that'd be my concern too is,
So then we have to be able to say that, okay, what are the other options? If it's all of a sudden a huge option that we're going all the way down to point A and point B, we're going to be the ones here a year from now listening to say, I have, 1,000 cars in front of my house.
The main detour for 8th Street will be Mississippi Drive, and we're making sure that that's.
So again, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah,
just to
I can get those
information,
detour routes
that's
from
all.
that
I'm good.
intersection.
So can you come back with more information before they give a consensus then?
I think.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm just, I'm good with it.
I can get you that information.
I just want to know what you mentioned, that there's huge detours.
Yeah, we have drafts of those detours. I can get those to you early next week.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's all I'm asking.
So does he have a consensus to move forward and do a little bit more research on this project?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like you got it.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Time for communication from council. Councilman Harvey, do you have anything to share tonight?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilman Spread?
I'd just like to say that we had a successful election on Tuesday, and thanks for everybody for turning out and voting. The local option sales tax is huge. We really needed that to finish the sewer separation project, so thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Malcolm?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Brockert?
I'd like to echo Councilman Spread's remarks. I was very happy to see the folks in Muscatine, our voters, pass the local option sales tax.
Councilman Brackett?
All right, not to be repetitive, but I also was quite pleased with the number of people that turned out for the vote for something that was not an exciting thing for most people, maybe for us, yes, but Yeah, no, that, it's gonna help things move along and, make sure that we don't have to, resort to other means to get that, and that pleases me. Also, I want to say, anybody that is interested in the, Soapbox Derby, keep your, ears open. So, we're working on something.
Excellent.
Councilman Saucedo?
Just a comment in regards to the quiet zone. I had some questions in regards to it, and I want to make sure that people are aware that it is a good thing for our community. I think the demo that we just saw today continues to push that effort. I want to thank the staff that has worked hard on that and the community involvement, and I think the value that it really does bring to the downtown. I know that it is new for our city, but it is something that is truly going to add value to us, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I want to thank the staff on that. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Councilman, thank you. Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nothing more, Your Honor.
I think we all had the local option sales tax on our agenda. I just had a couple of quick things. I'm leaving for vacation in the morning, and I have asked Councilman Harvey as Mayor Pro Tem to sit in my place next week, so he'll be chairing the meeting for you next week. Also, save the date, please. The next Coffee with the Mayor is March 24th at Happy Joe's at 9 a.m. And that's all we have for you tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. We are adjourned. Good night.
You want to add that?
I know.